Good evening. Welcome to the Smithfield Planning Board meeting for March 20th, 2025. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everybody in the case of an emergency, there are two main exits out of the chambers. The first is to the left side of the stage, up the stairs, through the doorway, and down the stairway, out the back side of the town hall. The second is out of the back of the chambers to the exit doorway to the stairway out the front of the town hall. The men's facilities are through the back of the chambers, past the stairway, around the corner on the right. The ladies' facilities are through the back door of the chamber, straight up the stairs, and on the left. Please do not use the elevator in times of emergencies. Initially, a review of the meeting minutes for February 27th, 2025. Does anybody have any proposed changes and or additions? Member Mike Moan, who cannot make it today, sent me correspondence regarding some of the issues tonight, including a reference to the meeting minutes of February 27th, and he indicated that he voted no on the Reservoir Road application, and the meeting minutes have him as a yes. You recall that he voted a no. So I would like to make a motion to amend the meeting minutes to reflect Mr. Moan's vote of no.
Motion to amend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have a motion to approve the amended minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The ayes have it. Turning to regular business, Amelia's Way, 260 Old County Road, ID 2405. My understanding that there is a request for a continuance. Okay. Do we have a motion on that request?
Motion to approve the continuance till next month.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Not in favor? The ayes have it. Going out of order for another request for continuance, 520 to 540 Douglas, PK 46-48 Ridge Road, ID 2505, public hearing. My understanding is there's also a request for a continuance as well on that matter.
Correct. We have a request for the project engineer for continuance on that as well.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Motion, it's the next meeting, Mike, correct? Okay. Motion to approve the continuance for Douglas Pike Ridge Road until next month's meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All not in favor? The ayes have it. Anyone that has an interest in the 520, 540 Douglas Pike 4648 Ridge Road matter, or the Amelia's Way matter, please treat today's meeting as the official public notice for the next hearing in April if you have an interest in participating. Turning to the residents at Greenfield Farms, ID 2008, public hearing, comprehensive permit application, major land development project, preliminary plan review.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good evening. John Mancini on behalf of the applicant with respect to its comprehensive permit for the property designated as Assessor's Plat 44, Lot 32. If you recall, at our last hearing, we went through the site layout for our preliminary plan application and its submission, and we also discussed a bit about the procedure, also had a discussion regarding peer review for some additional looking at traffic as well as drainage. At the time, we did not have our DM permit, but had submitted the same. And we also heard the testimony of Sam Hemingway, our project engineer from Garofalo, Engineering. If you recall, the proposal is for 74 units total, 37 buildings. We have now in hand a DEM permit. In fact, we received that DEM permit today, and I've provided a copy of that permit to Mr. Phillips, your town planner, and he can circulate the same. DEM in the correspondence with respect to the permit indicates that it did review our plans, does find them to be adequate, also had received significant correspondence. Specifically, the department says that it received 15 letters relating to our application, which were submitted during the public notice period, and has reviewed those comments and those correspondences in conjunction with the information and calculations that we've provided, and have issued that correspondence. The other discussion we had at the last hearing was the concern that the board had regarding the number of units that were being proposed as three-bedroom units. And there was a question as to whether there was a restriction or condition from master plan that limited the applicant's ability to have three-bedroom units at this site. And our discussion was that the applicant's conclusion was that there was no restriction or condition that eliminated the ability for the applicant to submit as part of its comprehensive permit only two bedrooms and not have any three bedrooms. I did have a chance to go back, look at the YouTube tape, and confirm what the conditions were. I did provide a correspondence to your town solicitor as well as Mr. Phillips on January 30th, 2025, essentially giving a summary of our position, and also provided the link to the YouTube video, if you will. I then had that video, the applicable section of that video, transcribed by a transcriptionist, and have attached that to the letter. And essentially, the solicitor at the time, Scott LeVake, came before the board and gave a summation as to the conditions, and he specifically stated that what the conditions were. And when it came to the three bedrooms, he said, regarding the local condominiums, and in particular who lives there, and in particular children, there will be some consideration that there will be no three-bedroom units in the development, not necessarily required, but considered whether it can be done with just two beds. And our proposal, we did take that into account, and we have eliminated not all of the three beds, but have made it the project a two-bedroom and a three-bedroom project. So, and we've also decreased the amount of units, as I stated at the last hearing. The initial proposal for master plan was 96 units, and we have reduced them to 74 units. So I hope that issue is put to rest. You know, I tried to look for the video again today, and unfortunately that video is no longer available. And I was hoping that the transcriptionist had saved that video in her file, but she did not. So all I have is the transcript of that video as transcribed and as attached to our correspondence. So I don't know what else we can do on that issue, if it's still an issue. With that, unless the board has any questions, I'd just like to call Mr. Hemingway, just kind of go through the design again and address any concerns that you may have, and also kind of address some of the concerns that we heard from the public at the last hearing.
Mr. Mancini, I do have some questions, but I'm happy to wait until whatever your preference is in terms of proceeding, whether you like your expert to, or whether you like some questions now.
Yeah, no,
you tell me.
No, well, we can do questions now through the chair, sure.
Okay. So I acknowledge the work you did in that you provided the information regarding two bedrooms versus three bedrooms in terms of some interplay with the board back in 2022. One of my questions is, given that there was a filing with that condition in place, irrespective of what may have occurred before that, can we just ignore what the filing is? And did the applicant, or was it the burden of the applicant to challenge that filing when it was filed, as opposed to now 2.5, 3 years later?
Yeah, I think, and I think we discussed that before. Our position is that we don't think that there's a discrepancy or an ambiguity with regards to the condition. When you read the decision, we don't think that the bedroom count is a condition. And that is further substantiated when you look at the intent of the solicitor essentially giving a summation of the board as to what their conditions are and what they should be in the letter. So I think when you take the face of the document and look at the intent that you can easily derive from the solicitor who has surmised it, I don't even think there's a race to be, even if you want to say the tie goes to the runner. I don't even think there's a race here.
Okay. You did mention in your presentation tonight that the board's request to keep the project to 2 bedrooms was taken into consideration. Ultimately, the applicant has chosen not to go forward with that. What did they do in terms of analyzing the 2-bedroom option? Did they run any pro formas? Do we have that to look at?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So essentially, if I understand you correctly, what did the applicant do to satisfy the intent of taking into consideration the board's preference to not have 3 bedrooms? And the board may be aware of how the comprehensive permit process is undertaken. And one of the requirements of prerequisites to submission is a letter of eligibility from Rhode Island Housing. And with that letter of eligibility, there are a couple of things that the board will look at, and the board not the board, but Rhode Island Housing in general will look at, and that's essentially the site, the accessibility of the site, and then the feasibility of the site. And we have presented and prepared, I wouldn't necessarily call it a performer, but an economic analysis to determine the viability of the project in consideration of the land acquisition, the construction costs, the permitting and other soft costs to determine, whether or not these 74 units, keeping in mind 25% would be restricted and how that would work. With this proposal, given the land size, given the design, given the location, 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms are what the numbers work best. There was some consideration given the 1 bedrooms, but the 1 bedrooms simply don't work because of the rural aspect of it, of this location. And I can share the numbers with the board. I do have a performer to basically show that. And we did 2 things. One is we reduced the size of the overall project. And by reducing the size of the overall project, that also decreases the cost of your infrastructure, decreases the cost of your overall construction. So that allows us to add more 2 bedrooms than if we had a larger amount of units. And then secondly, just looked at the market analysis for the demand of 2 versus 3 and took that into account. And then we ultimately ended up with an equal divide of 37 and 37. So 74 units, 37 2 bedrooms, 37 3 bedrooms. And that's essentially a compromise, if you will, as to how we determined that the project would be split between 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms.
I'd be interested in that in terms of the numbers that were run 2 versus 2/3.
Yeah.
Also, was there any impact study done with respect to the impact of 37 2-bedroom and 37 3-bedroom on the municipal infrastructure, including, for example, the school system, and whether or not the school system can handle it? And the reason why I do mention that is, of course, this project has to be consistent with our town's comprehensive plan. And some of the factors and policies behind our comprehensive plan requires us to take a look at some of these issues, balancing the project equity versus the toll on the town, and whether or not this particular project can overcome those balances. And that's a major concern. If you could address that, please.
Yes, absolutely. So we did not conduct an environmental impact study. No, I'm sorry, that. An economic impact study. Same E, different word. And normally, I don't disagree with you. Reviewing the economics and the impact of a development on your general services is needed information. But the reason why we didn't do a economic impact study, and the reason why we didn't think that one would be applicable here is because it's not one of the requirements the applicant, or should say the applicant doesn't have a burden to present that to you, because under the comprehensive statute, the standards that you review are prescribed by state law, right? The whole point of the comprehensive statute is that it preempts your zoning. And determination of school-age children, the amount of school-age children, and the economics of the school-age children is not an element for the board to consider in its approval process for a comprehensive permit. But that's not to say that it's not valuable information for purposes of planning and for purposes of determining overall budgeting from a municipal standpoint and a school department standpoint. So if the board is asking for an economic impact study and thinks one is necessary for informational purposes to help it conduct its planning, I don't have an objection to doing that and presenting something for you at the next meeting. But I do that with the caveat and the understanding and making it clear for the record that the applicant does not believe that it is required to produce such a document, and because it does not believe that it has the burden to present to the board numbers that are satisfactory for a comprehensive permit. Meaning that if the numbers show that the cost of services are more than what you will regain in taxes, it's not a basis for denial. I've seen projects where you have 200 units and the 200 units show a negative impact on the overall municipal budget. That's not a consideration for denial in the new statute.
How about, the state statute 4553-4 for low and moderate income housing?
Yeah, that's the statute.
Yeah, Section F talks about, if reasons for denial of a particular project, and one of those reasons, subsection 3, is the proposal is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan. Is that not inconsistent with what you're telling me?
Yeah, no, I don't, the comprehensive plan is not an economic document. Comprehensive plan is an overall development blueprint for the growth of your town. And there's no requirement in 4523, which is the statutory scheme governing comprehensive plans, that comprehensive plans are to be compliant with or be determined by balancing a budget. In other words, you don't balance your budget based on your comprehensive plan.
Right, but the statute seems to indicate that one of the proper reasons for denial of an application is if the application is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan.
Correct, right. And
So
that's-
if ultimately the board determined that a particular project was not consistent with the comprehensive plan, subsection F3 of the statute we're talking about, seems to give the planning board the ability to deny it if ultimately that was their wish.
My point is that I think that the board it would be an error of the board to use a fiscal impact study as a basis to deny the application because the fiscal impact study is not consistent with your comprehensive plan. There's no requirement for fiscal impact study to comport with the comprehensive plan or for the comprehensive plan to dictate fiscal compliance or fiscal responsibility between municipal budgets and school department budgets.
Well, if I understand you correctly, then what you're saying, you don't agree with my general proposition. You disagree that if a particular project is not deemed consistent with the financials because of the impact on, let's say, a school system, your interpretation is that's not a ground for denial under subsection F. Okay.
I agree with that point, and I agree with your general statement that a board can deny the application if it's not consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
But review of the comprehensive plan is confined to the four corners of the comprehensive plan.
I certainly would be interested in an impact study, especially given the applicant's position and unwillingness to stick with 2 bedrooms and insist on 3, because I think that definitely increases the potential number of school children and could have a negative or may have a neutral impact. I don't know until I see the documents, but it is a concern. I think it was a concern of some members of the public when they came last time that we were together. Charlie, you mentioned you had a question?
Yeah, first of all, I agree with the chairman's, I mean, if it doesn't fit, he's not just saying because of the financial, it just doesn't fit into the atmosphere of how we raise, this town is. It just doesn't fit. That's what that comprehensive plan, we want dogs over here, cats over here, and buildings over here. Put it in simple language. You're trying to put a dog over with a cat. We don't want the cats and the dogs. You get my point. So it's not financial, it just doesn't fit into that area, is what, so because of that, we can fight it on that. Second of all, I'd like to ask the legal counsel, we're still discussing what, he's saying the matter is closed on the three-bedroom argument.
That's his interpretation.
And that's what I'm saying, and by looking at it, looks like we're still talking about it, and so, is it been finalized that we agree or not agree? To me, it sounds like we're still negotiating whether it's a two or a three-bedroom gonna be there. We haven't granted them the idea of having a three, and they haven't accepted the idea of having a two, correct?
Correct.
So what can we do to make sure we fight for the two?
Attorney Mancini's work to find out exactly what happened was really important, because everybody needs to see that. The factual basis for the resolution decision at that time that said two isn't necessarily supported by what was discussed in that last section that was transcribed and summarized what took place. That's why I was talking with Attorney Mancini today, trying to get the video again to look at it all, with the whole thing in perspective. The concern the board should have is if you try to just carry over that requirement, that you could have a condition at that, and just carry over that condition, you could have an issue, because there is evidence in the record that it may not have been a definitive two-bedroom. However, at preliminary plan, you have the right to consider conditions. And I think that's what the chair was bringing up regarding the condition, if we look at it, interpreted correctly, was, as Attorney Mancini said, not required, but consider whether two bedrooms. So I think the board still has the right to look into that to determine what they consider. And they have to just put forth some evidence as to what they can do and why they want to agree for this board to make that decision at that time. So I think it's still an open-ended question. I think Attorney Mancini is more accurate that it's not definitive. This board can't hold them to two right now. I think if you tried to, you'd be on the losing end. But this board still has the right to keep that question open because it wasn't resolved at master plan that the board was going to limit it to two or give them two. So it's still open for factual evidence to be shown. Attorney Mancini has plenty of experts in this case that he can put forward to discuss those things.
If we have you have the same right to prove that we think it's wrong, it's gonna be, you're saying that we might be on a losing end, but,
Right, so
why not take I'm sorry, you keep saying that we're getting scared, this board's getting scared to death all the time, we're saying we're gonna lose in court.
so let me,
That's all I hear, we're gonna lose all the time. Why are we gonna lose?
that's not what I'm saying. I give you an analysis of what potentially can happen if it gets appealed on that issue. Subject to the fact that when things go to appeal, the town could be subject to paying attorney fees with the applicant on the appeal, which isn't a big deal if you have a basis to say no to something.
Right.
But on that one particular issue right now, I would tell the board, that's not the issue you want to fight yet on appeal until they present the evidence either way.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
So
so-
you are subject to being sued, you are subject to allowing to deny this project, but you're gonna deny the project based on the facts that they submit. Not on what we know was said 2 years ago, that's still an open question to be heard. So
That's
you're
all.
better off getting the evidence now, asking from Attorney Mancini, you'll be prepared for it, I'm sure. And you make that decision off of the elements that you have to follow.
So we can have some time to think about it.
I'm sure Attorney Mancini's applicant, as this comes up,
Well, what do you think about the argument about the town charter versus just not the financial? We can't fight it because we're saying because they're gonna overflow the schools, right? Which is a real dumb reason not to be able to do it. We won't get into that. But it just doesn't fit in that area. It's not part of the charter. The charter makes decisions that are in here saying it doesn't.
Charter, not the town charter.
The comprehensive plan.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, yeah, so why can't we?
The fiscal, I say to that is the fiscal study is a piece of evidence that you use towards getting to determine whether the overall project is consistent with the comprehensive.
So,
Use those facts
We're on-
from the impact study.
the
You just can't look at impact study and say, we don't like this, deny. You have to use that as one piece of evidence with the overall other things that they present, in terms of stormwater management, traffic, buffers, everything else that they're going to present to make that decision.
can we use that as an argument to use leverage to get them to use 2 bedrooms? In other words, if you give us this, we give us that. Can we argue with that?
We can bring that up during the evidentiary phase and ask them what they think. I think that'll come up again as they try to show what they did to show that 2 bedrooms was not gonna be something they could consider. And I think they will probably have evidence on that. That letter to housing, I'm not sure when that letter to housing was done with that pro forma. So Attorney Mancini could probably address that at some point to explain. Numbers could have changed. So that pro forma then may have said they could do 2. That pro forma now could change to the way prices are 3 years ago.
I just want to know what the best way to figure out some kind of compromise in this town rather than just giving in on everything, something like that. I don't try to be a bad guy here, but it seems like it's not going to work with everybody. We're going to learn to compromise. We're just being told, well, if you don't like it, we're going to sue you and go to the state. That's right. Every time I'm getting so
Just so we're clear, I'm not saying that if you don't like it, I'm going to sue you. I mean, I prefer lawsuits, but I'm not offering them here.
No, I'm just saying, that's what the state, every time I hear about Sakaji telling me what I gotta do in Smithfield.
No, my job is to satisfy the burden, and I can read the tea leaves very clear here, and there's a dissatisfaction with regards to 3-bedroom units. So what I can do to address that issue, to present evidence, is to give you a fiscal impact study and to also give you an analysis of the comprehensive permit. An analysis of the comprehensive plan. That's, I think, is the best evidence to prove my position to you that the 3 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms setup and makeup that we have here is consistent with your comp plan, and also gives you the information relative to the fiscal aspect of that, of the overall development. And you make your decision based on that.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah? Sure. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, speaking of the town charter,
Comprehensive plan?
no town charter, I mean town charter. It does state that of the several things that our planning board can consider is the economy of the town. It's right there in there, because you can define that how you want, but the economy of the town is a consideration for what the planning board looks like. So I would raise that as a point of.
What we have is a bigger issue. It's the conflict between the low and moderate income housing legislation versus our comprehensive plan, the town charter, and how that ultimately plays out, and what factors you can take into consideration and what factors you cannot.
Yeah.
And that's what we're all struggling with, and I think that's what many municipalities are struggling with. Applicants, and I don't blame them, they take the position that the low and moderate income housing statute perhaps trumps or overrides comprehensive planning and to certain extents in town charters because of the fact that it was enacted by the legislature. The issue, of course, is that's a factor to look at, but whether or not within that same statutory framework, we're allowed to claw back some of these issues, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation about the fact that under subsection F of the statute, that the project still needs to be in conformance with the comprehensive.
But just as a consideration, it does say planning board has the right to look at how a project affects the economy of the town. So I just think that is a important factor that we possibly have.
Noted.
And also, like you said about the landscaping of the town, that whole road, and you're gonna change the whole character of that whole area.
Well, it's going from something that was zoned that would not allow for what's being proposed, but for legislation regarding affordable housing, and whether the two conflict with each other, and if they do conflict, which one trumps the other. So it's a factor, ultimately, it's one of many factors.
If I may add, Mr. Chairman, I mean, I think you've zeroed in on what the issue is, and it causes a little angst among planning boards, not only this planning board, but other planning boards across the state. And that's because we're doing something that you normally would never see happen, right? We're coming in and we're putting duplex units in an R80 zone, and we're asking for a use variance, and we're asking the use variance from the planning board. But for 4553, you would tell me that I'm completely insane.
You're correct.
And you know,
And that's the conflict.
would laugh me out of Smithfield so quickly that, you know, my head would spin. But what the enactment of 4553 has done, this comprehensive permit, says, look, if an applicant provides 25% affordable units in the development, and that development meets certain criteria, they're entitled to a density bonus. In addition to that, the state statute trumps or supersedes local zoning. And as a result, the municipalities are obligated to review these applications through one body, and that body is designated as the planning board, and the planning board becomes a super body now in the sense that it has the ability to grant use variance, dimensional variances, and waivers from your subdivision regulations. And then it provides 6 particular criterias in which the applicant has the burden to perform and meet in order to get their comprehensive permit. That's the statutory scheme, that's the process. Completely contrary to your zoning ordinances and your zoning in your subdivision regulations. And with that, my job is to give you all the information you need to ensure that it does not drastically change the character and fiber of the community and the local area there. And again, we still have to meet requirements from DEM and state. The other thing that's extremely different is that we don't have to give you a state approval until final or even as late as building permit. Here, you know, we understand the sensitivity of this proposal and the sensitivity this board has to some of the environmental impacts, and so we already have our DEM permit in hand here at preliminary plan as opposed to final plan, as opposed to building. So we're working with you, and we continue to want to work with you to make you see that this is a project that will work in this area and that comports and complies with the statute.
Let me get this before I forget, because Member Moan had a question. He was unable to be here today. And I don't know if you can answer it, Mr. Mancini, or perhaps the planning can answer the question, but there was a question whether this particular project complies with Chapter 12.4 DX, the 1% limit per year requirement?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Catherine?
I want to switch gears a little bit and just ask a question. The 2 and the 3 bedroom units, are you proposing that half of each one of those will be low, moderate income?
Yeah, and we're not really proposing, but one of the obligations is that the LMI units can't stand out, so they have to
Right.
essentially be spread out.
Right.
So there'll be equal number of 3 bedrooms and equal number of 2 bedrooms.
When you come back, I would like to see a copy of the floor plan for the 2 bedroom and for the 3 bedroom, because I would hate to see some bonus room left open upstairs that could be turned into a bedroom.
In the 2 bedroom,
Right.
yeah.
Any other questions at this point of Mr. Mancini before we have his?
This comprehensive plan idea, right? Some of the goals are for people to live in the house correctly and to be able to get food, transportation, needs that they have easily. How is this development that's not on a bus route going to supply transportation for these people? I mean, the idea of the comprehensive is made so they can get food, housing, and transportation made easier for their lives. Now, I can see the housing, but I can't see the transportation, or how they're gonna get any food, there's no, what are they gonna walk? There's no buses there, there's no side, how is that fitting into the comprehensive plan? That's my argument.
Sure.
So I'd like to see us, this board start investigating the comprehensive plan itself and make sure that it fits into your argument with our board. In other words, I haven't thought of this before, but we just keep hearing the word comprehensive plan. It just says, oh, that is what it is. Well, what is it? How did you get this? What is your criteria to get this? It's just because you can? And it seems to me, I'm looking at it, and one of the things that there's no bus stop there, there's no transportation there. How are these people going to get out of there?
Well, so we call it we call it a comprehensive permit because that's the language of the statute, but really, we're offering affordable housing, workforce housing. So the people who buy, the residents who buy the
I don't mean to
LMI
interrupt you, but
aren't.
that's not what I'm saying. That's not what the comprehensive plan is trying to achieve. It's trying to achieve making it life easier to get that goal, you're only fulfilling a part of the goal.
I don't think it's trying to achieve to make life convenient or easier for people who live in
Well, that's what it
LMI
says.
units. No, the point is to make housing available and to make specifically affordable housing available. So that doesn't mean that people who live in LMI units don't have cars and don't have means of transportation other than public transportation.
I didn't say that.
No.
That's what the state's saying.
Well, I don't know if that's what the state's saying. All I know is that what our proposal does is it complies with the statute. And the statute has a formula that goes with it that defines what an LMI unit is. And an LMI unit in Smithfield that would be part of this is one that would be used by teachers, anybody who fits that economic criteria. And those aren't people that can't afford cars. They're not people that just are restricted to bus routes. They're people who are either starting out in their careers, or they're people that are school teachers, people that are firefighters, people that are police that are making that $100,000. I mean, the reality of it is, purchasing a $500,000-$600,000 house now requires an annual income of over $150,000. That's not workforce housing. It's not an easy achievement. That's what the goal of the comprehensive plan is, or a goal of the statute, at least as I understand it. But from our perspective, what we're saying to the town is this site, as designed, as laid out, complies with the regulations necessary and applicable for this type of development.
What does the attorney say? What do you have to say? Are they meeting the goals? What are the goals? I like to have a list of the goals. I don't have a list of the goals.
Well, in the comprehensive plan, there are hundreds and hundreds of policies and goals.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's, yeah.
We're talking about the comprehensive plan.
No, well, to get the, I'm sorry, to be able to get the housing, the objective.
Well, that's just asking the question again, boys.
To be able to get the extra housing and stuff, what is the criteria that they need for that?
It's listed in the general laws. The criteria is
I highlighted that.
legally competent evidence on the record that the proposed development is consistent with local needs as identified in the local comprehensive community plan, with particular emphasis on the community's affordable housing. That's the first element. And some of that goes to one of the things we're talking about, because part of our comprehensive plan and our comprehensive permit zoning talks about general conditions, properties located in close proximity to the town's population centers, accessible major transportation and transit routes,
Right.
proximity to community services. Those are all things that you consider when they're presenting all aspects of their comprehensive permit.
That's what.
They call it comprehensive permit.
Yeah.
because the
I'm not a
whole thing is
lawyer, but
done-
I'm just trying to figure out what it is, why we keep, how.
Next element is the proposed development is in compliance with standards and provisions of the town's ordinance and regulations. We know most of those things can't be in compliance because of the type of project it is. However, the standard goes on to read that if they're not in compliance, where adjustments are requested by the applicant, which are zoning variances or lot or waivers to the planning regulation, you handle waivers and planning. Local concerns have been affected by the relief granted, do not outweigh the state and local need for low to moderate income housing. So you have to weigh whether the different variances and waivers they need are enough to keep low to moderate income housing on the table for people to be able to afford properties to live in. The third item, all low and moderate income housings are integrated throughout the development. Scale and architectural size, market rate units have to be intertwined with them. That goes to what some of the things Member Lynn wants to see more plans. What Member Fuller-Vecchio looks at with architecture, see it's all blended together. Fourth, there's no significant negative impacts on the health and safety of current or future residents of the community. In areas of health and safety which would not be limited to safe circulation of pedestrian and vehicular traffic, emergency services, sewage, which in this one has been discussed, potable water, surface runoff, which DEM, you have that DEM approval, preservation of natural, historical, and cultural features. Next, proposal, land development will have adequate permanent physical access to the public street, which they've established. And the proposal will not result in individual lots created with physical constraints that would be impractical to exist, which is really no subdivision here, it's one lot, right? I believe it's just one.
Correct.
So those are the elements you gotta consider. As the chair referenced, there are various things that can go into findings needed for denial. The proposal is not consistent with local needs, including, but not limited to, the needs identified in an approved comprehensive plan and all local ordinances procedures. So that's an item that you can consider when you're saying, what are we looking for? Attorney Mancini's trying to explain to you that what he's presenting is the things he's asking for and the relief he needs out is sufficient so that you can have low to moderate housing in this project and have a project of this size. What you have to consider is, did he meet all these elements? In the comprehensive plan, in our zoning statute, Article 12, which deals with the comprehensive permit, lays out some of that information, as you already mentioned in transportation. So you have to factor those items in. He's willing, and you can look at the comprehensive plan, we can do a further study on it too. You can have someone do a further study on it also. Those are the elements you have to.
Thank you, because I just want to make sure that what we're talking about here, it just seems like this can happen, that can happen, this can happen, you can have. Why can't this board make its own decisions without outside influence? That's what my problem. We're here because we're picky, because we live here, we know what's going on in this town, blah, blah, blah. We investigate it, we all live residents, concerns of the people. And our opinions and decisions it doesn't seem to mean anything to me anymore. I'm getting very upset about, I'm gonna keep going back and forth talking about what the law is. Then your law is more important than ours, you know what I mean? Because your needs are greater than our needs, you know what I'm saying? So that's why I think we should compromise. Compromise, something, you know, that's all I'm asking about. And, it's not that hard to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, any other questions of board?
Totally different avenue here, which I was hoping to bring up last time. The soils and the property itself, the physical properties. I know you did a phase one, and I'm not sure if somebody's here tonight to explain it to us, or maybe next round, you can have somebody from Sage here, or if Garofalo's willing to take us through it. But the information, unless it's embedded somewhere deeper in here, basically says that it doesn't, it's within the standards. But to what level is it in the standards? Did it just meet it? I mean, my question is, given that it's an orchard and that there was interest in that lead and other chemicals in there, I want to be convinced that we shouldn't be going further and investigating what it is, or putting some sort of monitoring company, because basically saying you went down 2 feet for samples. But as we know, you're going to be digging, you're going to have people out there working. I mean, are they going to be exposed to stuff that's deeper? And so my concern is the property itself.
Okay. I'm going to turn that over to Sam Hemingway from Garofalo. Sam can talk about it.
Mr. Hemingway, if you could state your name, address, and I'll swear you in.
Sure. My name is Sam Hemingway. I'm an engineer with Garofalo and Associates doing business out of Providence.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do. So it's a lot to unpack there. I mean, I think you summarized it when you first started. Phase one investigations were performed. So there's a recognized condition, as you mentioned, of an activity on that property that causes concerns, that kind of triggers a need to look at it more carefully. In the process of doing that is to sample for suspected chemicals that may have been used, that were commonly used, to look for that and see if there are any, through the testing program that was established by a professional, with expertise in doing those investigations, to see if there are conditions that exceed thresholds that would either be action limits where something has to be done, or would be a concern moving forward. Without putting words, it's not my field of expertise, but it's certainly an overlap with the profession that I'm in. What that report concluded effectively is that there were the testing that was done, the program that was established based on the specifics of that property, didn't find any concentrations that were at a level that would be a significant concern. Effectively, that there was no evidence that there really is, although there was evidence that you ought to look because there was an activity that might be prone to causing a concern. When they did look, they did not find any conditions that indicated that there are plenty of orchards out there that responsibly used chemicals and did treatment in a manner that was not unsafe. The conditions that their investigations uncovered seem to indicate a scenario like that. So, you can always do more, right? But the guidance that the state gives for these investigations was followed, and the findings were pretty succinct that there was no evidence that was identified. So, to chase it further, certainly the state who regulates that would not be pushing for further testing of it. That's their expertise. There was no condition. So, not to say that it's 100% that there's not a specific spot, but there's no evidence that there's widespread use that would pose a threat to either people working on the site or, more critically, to residents. It's a residential property that live on the property when it's completed.
So the process itself, you're saying, was followed, and that the requirement is only to go down 2 feet for testing?
So there are a lot of things that go into the program, establishing a program of analysis. One of the thresholds is the direct exposure to those types of chemicals. Effectively, you don't have, generally speaking, you don't have exposure with soil materials that are below 2 feet in ground. So, you know, if there was some chemical 7 feet down, you just, normal activities, children playing in the lawn, don't come in contact that. That's really the threshold, that's the tie to the 2 feet. The other condition is that the specific chemicals of interest for this type of use are surface spread chemicals. So it's not an origination. We're not talking about the reason that investigations were performed on that property was not some underlying condition associated with the geology or some other condition, right? It's the concern that was raised is that pesticides specifically that were commonly used at orchards, that's a surface application. So the condition that you're most interested in looking at is that same 2 feet, right? So that's really what drives it. Now, there's a lot of overlap and different rules that need to be considered, but that is, you know, at this level, myself being not an expert and you folks similarly coming in contact with it, but being layman, that's a broad brush sort of how I would characterize it.
I've got a question for you. Like you just said, you took core samples, is that how you took the samples?
Yes,
Almost down
typically, I mean,
All right, we'll just, so you went down 2 feet.
typically.
That's what the state, that's what the state says, you have to go down, right? How deep is the foundation that you're gonna dig? How
Typically,
big
it would
is
be
the trench
3.5
work for the
4.5
electrical
feet.
work? So my point about that is when you're digging down, you're gonna be pulling it up and putting it up on top of the ground. And it's gonna be airborne. And I grew up on a farm, and the 30 years I was there, every other year, FMC would come out and say, this is a toxic chemical, you can't use it no more. So that stuff goes down, and it goes down, and it goes down, and it's down. It's not even close to being at that 2 foot level. There's studies done on farmland that is more beyond what's going on this, and that's what the problem is, when they're digging down and bringing it up and exposing it to air, it's activating. It's not just the surface level spraying that's going on, because that's, you're not gonna get touched. It's the stuff that's down further when you're digging the trenches for the foundation, the electrical work, the roads. You're going down more than 2 feet. Then you're gonna put it in the ground, and you're not gonna throw the soil away, you're gonna make piles for it. That's all gonna get airborne, you know what I mean? So all the people around there, it's gonna be, you know, there's all kinds of, you know, I didn't even think about what you guys, I'm glad, thank you for bringing that up. You know, going down testing 2 feet, I mean, you're digging I mean, there's gonna be all kinds of problems with that stuff coming up on top. Has that question been raised by anybody? Is there a
First and
law?
foremost, I disagree with
I'm
that
asking
assessment.
you, you're doing what the state says, what I'm asking here, do we have any guidelines for taking toxic stuff and putting it on top of ground and letting it sit there while we're digging?
Just his manholes, the sewers he's putting in are 8 feet deep, which then after you put the stone underneath, he's gonna end up being 10.
10 feet, so the safe level at 2 feet doesn't sound very encouraging, you know, so I understand, I know you're shaking your head or something like that, but he brought up a good point. I mean, these toxic, you know, how do we know? You know, I'd like to have it further tested, the soil further tested, and the idea about what just brought up. Other than, you know, that he made a very good point. I never even thought about it. I grew up on a farm, and the toxic levels are there are phenomenal. And now you start digging, like I said, and I think the town stopped the Matteo project years ago on Swan Road because they were digging and they were stockpiling the loam and it was blowing on people's property. So we ended up having to buy the property, I think, if I'm right, because of the property was so toxic that the town had to buy it to keep it from being abused. Because the contractor wanted to dig it up and make holes and was found out. So I would like to look at that information, see if it goes with this information, and see about what he brought up, about the toxics and stuff around here. I don't think we have enough information on it. Now that he brought that up, I'd like to see some more information on it. If you can get that for me, I'd be like. Thank you.
I think we began with questions before you did your presentation, Mr. Hemingway, or were you just going to respond to questions? I didn't want to cut you off from anything that you intended.
Yeah, again, I thought I was responding to a
Very-
specific question. I
that's
apologize.
fine. That's great.
I'm going to say I think that we more or less completed the presentations that related to the site layout issues at the previous meeting. I'll go at 10,000 feet and kind of talk to refresh the board's memory. Perhaps this is an overall plan of the property, West Greenville Road on the west, a condominium project, so a dense multifamily project immediately to the south. South beyond that is Smith Avenue. The project initially, although very similar in layout and configuration when it was first presented to this board, had a significantly higher density. It also had a unit selection type where there were no garages included, so that it was street parking. The proposal was actually for nose-in parking on significant lengths of the road. It also included a less standard turnaround condition, being a hammerhead, so that's a 3-point turn configuration. All of those topics were discussed with this board at that time, by now a couple of years ago, and we came back with a project that incorporated a reduction to the number of units shown on the plan, which is 74, each unit having a garage, a single-car garage, and a driveway space in front of the unit. There is still some parking within the development, but it is isolated to much smaller visitor-type zones, so 24-foot road width, but with parking proposed to, so parking at the unit itself and in the driveway, and visitor parking off the roadway to keep the road as narrow as possible. The cul-de-sacs were modified to a more standard round turnaround, such that plows and emergency vehicles do not need to do the backup move. So trash can be picked up and trash trucks and emergency vehicles could circulate through those turnarounds. There were a couple of snow areas that were added at the request, I think, of the town. And then the remaining changes were mostly related to buffering and vegetation. So the constraints on the property made it very difficult to increase the physical distances significantly. They were all increased slightly, but wholesale changes to incorporate larger distances to the property line was not able to be accommodated because of the physical constraints. But a significant amount of vegetation has been added, particularly in areas where new units closely abut property lines where homes would get visual connection. So along the northern property line, along the northwest border, there was a homeowner who came and addressed the way that his children play in the backyard, and so buffering was done there. Along the southern property line, effectively for the entire length of the property, excepting the wetland areas which were restricted, there's almost continuous vegetated buffers that is indicated at the backs of the units. That's along the condominium projects to the south, immediately south of the property. So those are the changes that were incorporated into the plan, and then the plans were also advanced from the master plan or conceptual level to a much more defined engineered condition. We advanced the roadway design with plans and profiles, the utility designs to incorporate the sewers that you spoke of. Generally speaking, the project proposes gravity sewers within the development, so 6 to 8 foot deep sewers to provide separation from water systems, and a private pump station on the property with a force main discharging to existing sewering facilities at, I want to say Steer Road, but certainly in Smith Avenue. So quite a ways from the project. What is proposed on the with this application is a private force main all the way to the point of discharge. One of the open questions I believe that still exists is there is a potential for the town to take, to allow the force main within the roads to be public, so that there would be an opportunity similar to a water main for residents along that run to connect. The applicant does not object to that should this board decide that condition was favorable for the town. The project is proposed to be on public water, so a water main is proposed to be extended again from Smith Avenue up to the property and throughout the property with hydrant distributions that meet the fire department requirements. We've met with all those agencies and we understand them. The determination by the water department is complete, but the sewer consultant, the on-call consultant for the town has been provided. The information that we provided to the town, I understand there was a peer review occurring, but we have not heard back from that group. We'll certainly accommodate any conditions or make changes that they think are suitable to the project. Similarly, there was a peer review done for the traffic study that was proposed and applied for with this project. The fronting road is in fact a state highway. A permit for connection to the state highway has been obtained. That was based on the traffic study that was developed. The town's peer review has been completed, and some what we would consider to be minor issues were raised, which are being investigated and will be completed. The underlying conclusion of your consultant was effectively that the impact, that the operation of the entrance and the configuration will operate safely and effectively. So I don't want to put words in their mouths, but I think that was their underlying conclusion, and we are currently working to resolve those. Similarly, the drainage and I guess general engineering, I'm honestly not sure, was routed through another peer review. That is similarly, as I understand it, still ongoing. We have not received those, but the project has been, we believe, fully engineered and submitted to the state, who there's a pretty significant overlap. The discharge from this property is actually to state waters. So this project has gone through a formal application to alter wetlands based on the road crossings. That process has taken upwards of 18 months to between 18 months and 2 years, but that permit is now in hand. It obviously went through a very rigorous review of the state, both from an engineering perspective for stormwater management, but also for an ecological review of the wetlands themselves and the function and values of those wetlands, and with the conclusion that the impacts, although impacts are necessary to do the crossings, they are not significantly and will not alter the characterization of the wetland complex on the property. So that's probably much longer than I intended for it to be. I'm here obviously to answer questions, any technical questions you have.
Yeah, I've got a couple. Did you ever look at the levee I asked about, the earth dam? What was your answers to that? Is it safe? What's it made out of?
Yes, so it's an earthen berm. There is in fact vegetation on that, on the berm itself that is discouraged. So trees have been growing and they're getting larger than they would be. If that was a more critical condition, that is, say, a taller berm or holding back more water, it might require more attention because the amount of water being held behind it is not significant as it relates to what's downstream, and the condition has not, I did not see any signs where failure was occurring. I don't think there is a need for immediate action now, that there is an entire department at the state that is.
Is that part of is that part of your skills, deciding?
Certainly it is within the realm of what I do.
Mine's growing up on a farm a little bit. It's not a good sign when there's trees growing in it. It shows that there's water going, there's fault. It's not a good sign.
I hope I just said that.
You know, to me, it sounds like that thing's gonna break.
If there's a concern, again, there is an entire department at the state that regulates those dams. I don't think the dam is high enough. It's much like a beaver dam. It is certainly a condition that could be improved and would be improved if that impoundment was something that would pose an imminent risk. I thought that is not the condition that I saw out there.
Well, I'd like to get another opinion on nothing personal, because just the way,
I encourage
I recommend we get more information on that. Also, the people at Orchard Gate, they're concerned about the height, it says, from a law firm, that they're worried about the runoff going into that area. Have you looked into that? 'Cause you got
We
this piece of
certainly
paper.
have walked, I'm aware of the letter. I've walked that line. Our topographic survey indicates that condition does not actually exist, that there's a low-lying area between the two properties which discharges. In fact, almost the entirety of runoff from the Orchard Gate development is discharged onto this property, and is frankly one of the significant crossings that we needed to mitigate.
So they didn't have any evidence of this? They just asked you what?
I did not note
You
a
didn't present
condition where,
any evidence
I did
to-
not note a condition where runoff from this property either currently discharges from this property onto Orchard Gate or will discharge at completion of the project towards Orchard Gate.
Well, I think this board should look into making sure it's all right
I
because of
hope
all the
they do.
flooding that goes on around in
I
here.
hope they do. I've given you my opinion.
Yeah, and like I said, before you get, I want that levy looked at, sir. Somebody to do that. I mean, to me, it just
Certainly
seems
work with the
dangerous.
property owner to do that.
You know what I'm saying? Just, like I said, they're not supposed to have trees growing on them.
Board member Moan, who's not here today, he had a question whether Building 37's deck protruded into the 25-foot building setback.
I don't believe that, I'm not sure that those are decks or patios, to be honest with you. Certainly, there would be no intent to extend a deck within a setback that has not been identified within a release.
So if it appears so on the plan that's been provided, that's not the intent in terms of an as-built?
I will have to find the specifics of that building to answer, but if it shows very closly that might be a pen setting, that there would be no intent to extend a deck within a setback, that, in fact, there will be no decks extended into setbacks that aren't identified as an encroachment on the site.
Okay. Any other questions of the board members of the witness? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this point, I don't have any further witnesses, except that I do intend to request that I be permitted at the next hearing to identify witnesses for you for both consistency with the comp plan as well as fiscal impact study. We will provide you floor plans, and it seems that there are some questions with regards to the environmental impact study that we provided with Sage. So I'll have someone from Sage also here
Address that,
to
the levy
address
issue
that.
and the...
Yeah, that's fine. And we're still waiting for additional comments with regards to the traffic impact study, the peer review on that, peer review on the engineering and storm, and Mr. Bannon, who I was hoping could start his presentation tonight on that, is not available, so we'll have to continue him there. The only housekeeping matter would be the time clock, and I don't recall offhand when the board is required to make a decision by.
I think at the last meeting, we extended it to the next meeting.
Okay. Okay, and that's good.
To when?
The 17th of April, which is our next
No,
meeting.
and we have a major project that's going to be before us as well on that date.
That's not guaranteed.
Oh, okay, okay. I was just concerned about time, if that was the case.
We'll plan accordingly.
Okay.
So I would ask that we continue it to a date certain of April 17th for those items.
Whatever's agreeable to you and the town is fine with us, so that you're not prejudiced and allowed to address the issues that we have raised today. For Mr. Asillo, there's a lot of members of the public here. I probably believe they have an interest in what we're talking about today. Do we open today for comment, or does that get continued to April?
I think you should just open it and limit it to the items discussed here tonight, so that if there's something further that they want to hear from the public that may need to be addressed, if it's beyond the scope of the items discussed tonight, I'd rather you limit that part of the public comment, because they're here to address those.
Ask a question first. Yeah, I have a question. I don't know who can answer it. On the memorandum, it states the municipal water and sewer system have the capacity to support the development with upgrades. What are the upgrades? And who would be responsible for paying for said upgrades?
I think I'm the right person to answer the question, but I didn't catch it fully.
So it states the municipal water and sewer system have the capacity to support the development with upgrades. What are the upgrades?
Oh, primarily that would be the extension to and through the property.
So the rest of our stuff can
If it's
handle.
from the water department, there's a 12-inch water main proposed from its current location, roughly a quarter mile away, up and to the project entrance. So that, and I think in accordance with recommendations of DPW, the property owners along the way will be notified that there's
So
potential.
there's nothing on the water board's, sewer authority that has to handle anything, it's just.
No.
All right.
Everything to this property will be borne by the application.
It's now 7:14. We're going to open the matter for public comment. Anyone wishing to be heard, please come forward, state your name, address, and then we'll swear you in. I think this gentleman's coming first.
Joseph D'Amico, 60 D'Amico, D apostrophe, capital A, M-I-C-O.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do. 63 Fanning Lane is my address. I'm going to read from my phone here. I didn't want to forget anything. I wish to state my objection to this project as I did during the 2022 Planning Board meeting that we had, first time this was addressed, as well as any proposed freshwater wetlands alterations related to the residents at Greenville Farms as applied by West Greenville Road LLC. My wife and I live at 63 Fanning Lane in Greenville, which abuts the land in question. We moved here 14 years ago. When the developer's project proposal was initially presented to the Smithfield Town Planning Board, a packed house of residents, including myself, spoke at the meeting expressing grave concerns over the potential catastrophic environmental and natural resource issues, as well as the overall traffic nightmare that this development would create in our town. Any approval to this application to build on or anywhere near these wetlands would be an unsafe, costly mistake on so many levels. It would also give the developer or the future condo association further justification to continue building beyond the scope of this application. At that point, they could submit further wetland alteration plans and use precedent as a means of gaining future approvals to expand the project even further. Our major concerns related to the freshwater wetlands is backflooding, the negative effect to natural resources, environmental damage, disrupting potentially toxic soil as was discussed tonight, and the killing and displacing of precious wildlife. I can submit to you upon request multiple photographs of the abutting area in the back of my property showing you what it looks like after a heavy rainstorm or during the rainy season. Numerous lakes of water, to say the least, that also spill onto my property. The properties that abut the back of this land cannot take on any more water. The rainwater storms we have had in recent times have been beyond excessive, to say the least. Climate change has had a dramatic effect on the subject land, and any attempt to build on this area would have catastrophic consequences. I, for one, would like to know exactly what effect this development will have on my property as far as additional water backflowing onto my land and potentially into my home upon filling in these wetlands. Where's all this water going to head? Do we know for sure if the developer is going to handle these issues in a manner that will prevent this from occurring? What is their responsibility here? Also, how exactly is this project going to affect the area groundwater? How will any of these buildings not be severely affected by the wetlands those foundations will sit on? I will state for the record that if this development is constructed, each and every one of those dwellings will soon have serious water mold and major structural issues. You can bet on it. We are also just as concerned over the number of wildlife creatures that make their homes in the forest behind our property. The land is loaded with deer, turkeys, coyotes, red foxes, squirrels, rabbits, turtles, etc., you name it. In the 14 years since my wife and I purchased our property, we've even witnessed various wild cat species as well as a bear sighting. We've seen literally everything back here, including many species of very rare and endangered birds, including eagles. Other than what appears to be the developer attempting to pad his wallet again, does he have any concerns over destroying the wildlife refuge for these creatures? These are all important issues that must be addressed. This project appears to me nothing more than another vehicle to fund the developer's multi-million-dollar retirement portfolio, out-of-town developers wanting to cash in on big profits, leaving the towns with the burden of dealing with years of obnoxious construction noise, excessive traffic, environmental destruction, and exhaustion of town resources. The developer erects these low-quality buildings, takes his millions, and runs off to the next rural territory to buy and destroy. Developers such as this were from the same groups of people pushing the legislation that we talked about tonight to pass the special permit process years ago. So they could easily secure large-scale projects and bypass certain restrictions that previously prevented them from dumping these cookie-cutter projects in everyone else's backyards, except for their own backyard, of course. You must remember, it was all over the news back then, maybe around 2008 or around 15 years ago when this all took place. As soon as that sham legislation was passed in the final session for the year, literally hundreds of applications immediately came flooding in from developers all over the state to drop high concentration apartment condo complexes all over the place. As long as the developer promised a minimum percentage as affordable, they could bypass local restrictions and steamroll right through to the approval process, and the towns and its residents were left holding the bag. This has to stop. We just can't allow these guys to do whatever they want here just because they reserve a certain portion of the units for affordability. Look at the number and the magnitude of the variances they are asking for. That alone should tell you how wrong and unsafe this development is for this location and for our town. I also have to ask, where does the EPA come in here? What about the Endangered Species Act for threatened wildlife, town or even state designations of wetlands? Is there any say here from these agencies or municipalities? This will have a serious effect on the ecosystem in the area. I would like to know what specific DEM permits have been issued here, where they just received yesterday. For the sake of local property owners, the town of Smithfield, local wildlife, and the environment, please make the right decision and do everything possible to stop this application. Thank you for your time.
My name is Geraldine Moretti. I live in Building 9 in Orchard Gate. If you look at the entrance
One
to...
second, please. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but
Oh,
the truth?
yeah, I do. ETTI. If you enter this development, our building is right at the juncture of where it turns. And that area collects so much water consistently throughout the year. Starting now, you start to see it even more so because of the spring rains. And this is the area where there's supposedly a concentration of the units to be built. So this is going to further upset our area and our water levels so that it makes it pretty much an area of flooded basements all the time. I don't look forward to this, and none of us do. And I just feel that this property needs to be looked at again for those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is John Tucker, Tucker. Do you care to swear me in?
Your address, please, sir.
West Greenville Road, Greenville, Rhode Island,
What number, please?
79.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Two thoughts and then a general comment. I boarded that farm, living there many years, and Mr. Boyd mentioned Matteo Farms and hazardous chemicals. Matteo Farms grew apples and peaches, and Knight Farms grew apples and peaches too. Same product. Just an observation. Second observation is that West Greenville Road's pretty dangerous now. There's no sidewalks. The town has disallowed heavy trucks on Smith Avenue, so they all go across West Greenville Road now. And these are big trucks. They go fast. I think you're going to have to think about some sidewalks if this happens, to keep people safe, especially if you have older people walking. Just an observation. General comment, I've been to all three meetings, and I have to tell you that the first two, I left with a pretty strong sense of hopelessness. I didn't see any hope here that this was going to turn out in the best interest of the town. But tonight, you folks are working hard. You're earning your salt, you're showing some gumption, and I'm encouraged. Good job, keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Rich Feely. I live at 19 John Street, which is right off West Greenville Road. Feely, F as in Friday, E-E-L-E-Y.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the
I
truth?
certainly do. I just wanted to comment on, there was talk about the wetlands and the soil contamination and how they just recently got the environmental permit. I was just curious what the conditions are of that, how impactful that is, and to further follow up on what was stated earlier, the amount of variances and waivers and the nature of this parcel make the nature of this parcel potential to be a disaster if built. And I think something needs to happen where we put the brakes on this, because this parcel is not suitable for development. I think if it had two houses on it, it would be overdeveloped. Put these in, and you can see by the way it's squeezed in over there, that's telling you something, that it's not the right parcel for this. They need to find some other place. Thank you.
Just, you can let the public know that DEM permit, if they want to see it, they can come to the planning department and ask for a copy and have it reviewed. It will give them all kinds of information in it.
Everybody hear that? There was a DEM permit that the town and the board received today. It's be at the town if anyone has an interest in looking at it. They're free to do so. We have not been able to digest it. We just received it today. If you could state your name and address,
Hi,
please.
Tanya Alexander, 22 Whispering Pine Terrace.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do. Okay. So I just have a few concerns. My property's not directly next to or impacted, but I do have some concerns. My first concern are the impact studies, impact on schools, impact on fire and safety. Anytime you're adding building of this substance, you're impacting the school system. And when you're impacting schools, fire, and safety, you're also looking at impacting the taxes as taxpayers. The next thing my concern comes to is the bucolic charm of this town. We moved here 20 some odd years ago. Grew up in Warwick, moved to North Providence, and then we moved here. Love this town, but we moved to this town because of the charm of this town. And I don't want that charm destroyed. And I was listening here and I heard about the water levels, and that's another concern because I know you're saying that DEM said it's fine, but if that's wetlands, we all know from the laws of physics that every action has an equal opposite reaction. So if it's fine to build there, what happens to the neighbor's property? So just keep that in mind. And then finally, I'm going to close with quoting Dr. Seuss and the Lorax. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Thomas Lang. Live at 77 West Greenville Road up in the left-hand corner there. L-A-N-G.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth,
I do.
nothing but the truth?
So I'm going to bring up about the water again. According to the maps, I think I'm in the lowest area, and we get substantial flooding. You never got before, but now we are. So my backyard and the backwoods get a lot of water, so I'm really concerned about the water runoff from this project. I'm also on a well. We don't have access to the town water, and that's a real concern as well. Secondly, on the traffic, I was wondering when they did the traffic study, because that does have an impact. If all the snowbirds are gone, the kids aren't in school or whatever, that would have an impact. So I just was wondering when that was done. And then my third concern was in terms of the safety. I know we had issues with the fire marshal and those turnarounds. Just looking at the map, I don't see how big fire trucks getting around those. But we had a fire right across the street just recently, a huge one. At the height of it, I counted 28 emergency vehicles on West Greenville Road. Police, fire, rescue. We even had a poor guy in a bucket truck trying to take out the electricity while the flames were flying. I just don't know if the fire marshal's given his final approval on this. I knew it was a question from the last meeting because there's only one exit from there and the turnarounds look pretty small to me. And the last is just on a personal note. I see that they put in a lot of trees and buffers, but my part of the property has no buffer. I don't see any of the trees there. I just see buildings right up against my property line there. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name's Sean Carley. I'm at number 61 Fanning Lane. We just bought the house a couple months ago. What's up? Sean, S-V-A-N-K-I-L-E-Y.
Let me swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir. My biggest concern is on, and the councilman over there had mentioned it, the significance of the health and safety of the current town residents. You can see on the property right below the power lines up there. My concern would be that the development of Fanning Lane was built back in the 70s. I don't think it was really planned out that 60 years later, there would be a massive development of almost 100 units. My concern is the greatest impact that that's going to have. As my neighbor Joe said over there at number 63, the water, everybody's been talking about the water. You know, it's really bad. My backyard tends to get right muddy and wet. I'm concerned about the long-term ramifications. What's going to happen if these wetlands get altered and there becomes damage to our properties? I'd just kind of like some answers on that. In terms of the traffic, I know that, I think we all know, I'm sure you get complaints all the time on Route 44. I don't really know how the traffic can possibly be changed. Everything is pretty much locked in. There's too many existing buildings. I don't really know how you can add more lanes or really change anything. I did forget my notes, so I just came from work. So I had a couple more stuff written down, but I may email you some stuff if I think of it after. I do thank you for all your time and patience on this.
Thank you. Matthew Fague, F-A-G-U-E, 247 Old County Road. I live right over the hill, right over here off Old County.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth,
I've
nothing but
sworn
the
a
truth.
couple times this week already, but yes. Let's start off the fire on 3 John Street. Smithfield had their towel ladder there. The number of fire trucks is because there's no public water. The water on Waterman Lake was too low to draft from. There was tanker task force set up on Smith Avenue. The trucks had to run back and forth, hit the hydrant on Smith Avenue by the condos, come back to John Street, dump their water into the ladder truck, 2,500 gallons a minute. As soon as the water hit from the engine to the ladder truck, trucks had to leave again. The water line, they want to tie into Smith Avenue. The town records would probably show, I think there was a disruption in the water supply this winter, maybe January, December. The age of that water line, infrastructure brought up by Mr. Sloboda. Traffic on 44. Does anybody go westbound in the morning? Everybody's going to be going eastbound. Right now, it backs up almost to West Greenville Road. The sun glare in the morning slows people down, the buses, the traffic light in front of Austin Avenue. As far as traffic going down Smith Avenue, a lot of people tend to avoid that. Smithfield Police Department's proactive in traffic enforcement. They have a step post on there every morning, at least 3 days a week. A selective traffic enforcement program. Slow the motorists down. Usually they're on the hill coming down by just before the old Greenville Inn. Somebody brought up the truck traffic. That's correct. There's signage there at the intersection. Nobody's to go down Smith Avenue with large vehicles. With that being said, the four-way intersection at Knights Farm, there's accidents there. There's accidents routinely there. That's the town line. Some people say, well, I didn't see anybody coming, so I just slightly slowed down and kept going. Well, you meet in the intersection, you have accidents. If traffic decides to take a left out of the complex and use Smith Avenue, that whole intersection there with all the traffic come out of Gloucester, crossing over onto Smith Avenue. If you take that in the morning during prime traffic times, traffic backs up all the way up Smith Avenue, probably to the old Greenville Inn because of the traffic light at 44. They tried to resolve that problem by changing the light. You can take a turn on the red there, certain hours of the day. They tried to do it during the business hours to alleviate the traffic backup. You have the traffic with the new trap there as well. Charlie brings up the earthen dam. What was the purpose of the earthen dam? Is it a dam? Is it a berm? Engineer referred, or somebody referred to it as a beaver mound. I don't think beavers build dams that high or huts that big. And why was it placed there? To stop the water from flowing onto the current project? Or was it for the water to not flow back onto the other side of that dam? The town does maintain records. Usually it's the owner of that dam or that berm, if it's just a berm, is responsible for the upkeep and the repair of it. If it was to fail, I think I asked last time, loss of property and or lives. Is there water? Is that part of the reservoir on the other side of that? Or is that just groundwater? Is that a berm that maybe an old-time farmer, no offense, Mr. Tucker, may have put that up to keep the water from flooding his fields? It's the same reason why a beaver tends to raise water levels, because they want to make sure that their hut is at a certain level protected by the water. I'm concerned about the infrastructure. I'm a taxpayer in town. I'm invested here. I've been in this town for 56 years. I'm concerned about the growth. Everybody's here tonight. I don't know if there's anybody here from the council. I do. There's one here. This goes back to Capitol Hill and Providence.
Counselor brings it up tonight, he's very respectful. He says, I'm allowed to do this. The company, the developer has the right to do this. I think Mr. DeAmber said we have to start chipping away at maybe some of the way that the law has been written. I think it's time to get the excavators out and start digging away at it, not chipping away, because the amount of growth that's going on in town, it does create an infrastructure problem. And economically, responsible growth is good. But when we start putting in the term cookie cutter, putting these in, you're taking a piece of subpar property and you're bending the rules and asking for these variances, creating your own hardships by saying, I want to put this many units in, maybe scale the project back a little bit. But again, where's the tipping point? Somebody brought up financial gain. You got the right to do with your property, but within set limits so you don't upset everybody else. The setbacks on the property, the people that now have their kids playing in the yard, they've been living there for how many years? You build this unit, the setbacks are pretty close. Those kids are playing in the backyard. Maybe they got a small party. I work third shift, they're trying to sleep during the day and the kids are out there playing. Next thing you know, phone complaints start. So the setbacks become an issue. As far as the power lines, they haven't been addressed yet. Is that a concern? Everybody's worrying about what's in the ground. Those appear to be high-tension utility lines that go through there. They feed all the way up to the power lines in Gloucester. They go to the substation on Bourne Street, I believe, somewhere off of 44. There's other issues that still need to be looked at. The house across the street, again, not naming the property owner, when they built it, they did scrape away the dirt. They did cover the dirt with plastic. Knight's Farm to this day, when they are spraying out there, they are wearing some type of a mask, rubber suit, or they're in a self-contained unit. The chemicals that were used probably before Charlie's days of being on the farm were a lot more harsh than what's being allowed today. Those are heavy chemicals that sit in the ground, they go deeper. When you do start digging holes, foundations, moving dirt around, dirt gets blended, maybe it's being used as topsoil now. I'm gonna save money, this is good dirt, we can use this and maybe just top dress a little bit of room over it versus bringing in more material. The Whipple complex, where the old iron foundry was, I think that was remediated altogether. I think when they put that in, those pump stations down there, that's probably a more severe case. But there probably needs to be more studies done, because 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, if somebody comes down sick, or say a cluster of people in there get diagnosed with cancer, that may be a concern. I appreciate what the board does. They come, they're taking their time to do this, but unfortunately, the pressure of these developments in town that are starting to come before you, it's a burden on you to push back a little bit. So keep pushing within the law. Sometimes people say, you know what, council over there said you can be sued. Well, maybe take it back to Providence where it started and bring it back to the courthouses down there and take your chances. Nobody wants to do that. We want to be responsible at the same time. So with that being said, I'll conclude.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Kathy Deluca, C-A-T-H-Y, D-E-L-U-C-A. I'm at D-E-L-U-C-A.
What was your name, ma'am?
Kathy Deluca.
Okay, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I'm at 125 Smith Ave. I'm in Building 9. I've addressed my concerns previously, and they include mostly what everyone here has said. The water is a major issue that I'm concerned about. Potential flooding of basements, which we already have now in our building. And I just think disturbing the ground is just going to make that water table do crazy things, and you're going to see water where you haven't seen it before. I understand the need for the LMI housing. I don't have an issue with that. But I think the developers take total advantage of that by increasing the building density, which they are allowed to do under the new laws. But the amount of housing, even though it was reduced from 90-something units to 70-something, is still a ridiculous amount for that piece of land. You can see everything's pushed all in one spot, everything's single file. It just looks horrific. I just am totally opposed to that. I think if it was a more responsible development on the land, maybe even again, half the number of units as what they're proposing now. I'm sure it's not economically feasible for them, but, that's not my issue. So I just wanted to state again my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to be heard? Not hearing anything from the public. Public hearing is now closed for this evening at 7:41.
Yeah, keep it open.
Open, but closed for tonight, but open until the end of the resolution of the matter. With that being said, we're continuing the matter to April 17th. We're in agreement that no prejudice in terms of any time clock running. You're aware of some of the concerns.
Yeah,
and
we'll have
plan
those.
on having those addressed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Today's hearing is noticed for the next hearing in this matter. You want to take a 2-minute break? We're going to take a 2-minute break before the next matter.
We're on a 64 house subdivision. Yeah. It's one of these we would have hated. We've been there over a year now, and we'll be there another year and a half, I'm thinking.
Just doing the road work?
Yeah. We're not even doing the house, we're just doing site work.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Moving all the dirt, water lines, sewer, drainage, all the retention ponds. We take care of everything. Nothing's a problem. And we had a little ledge, but we took care of it. Yeah, a lot of it.
16?
You know what's going there? Everyone I talked to said something different.
Somebody's spending an awful lot of money.
Someone said that was deeper glorious.
We saw it.
I don't know. Someone said they were putting up an office building up top. That's what I heard. I don't know if it's true. I mean, that's a hell of a hill to bring machines up and down.
First day I was there, I was watching the guy. The guy was that's crazy. It reminded me of Billy Davis being the thing was like this.
Yeah.
This guy's got a lot of. He was just like with a badger. He had something. You turn it sideways, well, you know. This guy's unbelievable. Then they started blasting him, but still, I don't know, 6 degrees. Still, the rock truck guys got a lot, because that thing will flip like there's no tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, we got one.
Excavator's not too
We got one. I haven't flipped it yet, but.
I can't drive one of those things.
Come to the job. It's down in Coventry, nice open lane. We got about 2,000 feet paved right now.
Took me, when I first started driving, one of the people takes a long time to have trust in a mirror. You know what I mean? That's the problem.
Yeah.
You gotta trust in the mirror. You can't drive back
Yeah.
on them up.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta swing by, take one for a spin.
I used to like it though. Used to hold a lot of rock. Heavy rock.
Yes.
Like the 2 rocks on it.
Yeah.
Really was nuts. Nuts.
You know his, what is his nephew? John Davis. He's a good.
Charlie. The kid's up there now. Billy. He's dangerous. I think he's more dangerous than the father. Well, I spent almost my whole youth up there.
Really?
You know, the oil is like, he made the moves so much that we changed the oil every 7 days. With the excavators and the speed. We get in that excavator at 5 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock every 5 evening, go from 8, whatever it is, you know. Dock, dust the dock, wherever it was, he was in it. The channel there, he had the engine, Army Corps engineers, it was.
I've never been there. My father used to go up all the time.
He had the honest to God, like you looking out the window, be like, dude, and he just push it, so it rock it back up. That's how he got it back up. You know, and he'd be working like this.
Yeah.
He'd be like, when you get on the home, he was crazy. Crazy.
I've heard stories.
No seatbelt, no nothing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, really,
Get out of here tonight.
Okay, we're ready to resume.
Finding the brain.
Next matter is 20 Levi Lane, ID 2506, public hearing.
Good evening again, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to give you a brief summary of this project, only because if you look at it without having a little background, I don't want anyone to get too inflamed over what's happened down there. This is 20 Levi Lane, and everyone may know it's that little side road on the backside of where D'Angelo's was, it goes down in there. This project that you see before you comes before you after actually still pending a couple of years in our municipal court. It originally came to the municipal court because the town was heard from DEM that there were tires in the water down there. They weren't caused by the company that was down there, but when our town officials went down there, we saw that there were a couple of buildings down there that had no permits. And A-Star Oil was operating out of there. And I will say that the owner of A-Star Oil has probably come to at least 10 municipal court hearings, conferences, or a couple of trials along the way. So what you see before you is the almost getting to the end stage to get approvals, both for the project development and the zoning variances that are needed. A-Star previously has already agreed to several fines along the way. And those are on record, so they've been, like I said, cooperative and agreed to some fines as they've tried to come to this. They've been delayed in getting to you in part because surveys, engineering and surveys take time because the surveyors are way behind schedule. And they're now in the process of trying to go to DEM. The last point I want to make before the attorney comes up and explains to you what the project is. These buildings you see are all with respect to fire in compliance right now. Not for building purposes, but fire. We held hearings and the fire marshal was there. The fire marshal has been down there. The Greenville Water gave us information about the fact that no one knew there was a hydrant down there that could be tied into because everyone thought we were gonna have to bring a line down from 44. So the fire department is well aware of the oil company down there, which is actually allowed use to do business and park in their oil trucks, which are usually empty by the end of the day. And the fire department can get down there. I believe there's a lockbox if they have to get through the gate. There's a path that they can get in as far as they need to get to the far building, which on your map would be over here to the left side of your drawing. that was one of the big issues that had come up. My concern early on in the whole process was I don't want a fire down there and the fire department doesn't know about it. So in terms of the overall project, although it has to go through you for master and preliminary plan and also for your zoning variances tonight, if you ever have a question about fire's already looked at this. So in terms of what they're gonna do there, it's in compliance and I'm comfortable on that end because that's been in effect now for at least 18 months.
The map doesn't show the relation of the mall buildings.
So if you look on the far right, the edge of pavement, the mall would be elevated 25, 30 feet high, and that's the backside of Panera, what I call, Panera.
Is there any way to put a connecting road back there?
No, well, Mike Phillips could probably tell you more about that, because I think connecting roads in the back of there have been a discussion for several years. Right now, the owner of Levi Lane, I don't, it's a company name, his name's Artec is what I call him. He does not own this property here, it's still owned by a global acquisition entity who's a cellular tower company. The plan is hopefully for them to purchase it in order to finish their storm water management in any OWTS. But in terms of a roadway, Mike could probably tell you more generally, because there's been a concept of all that.
They have been negotiating with a company that almost single acquisition. You see, there is a stream in wetlands that separate this property from the global property. And we've been trying to get discussions going with them to have a road connecting Apple Valley to the mall. Their acquisition of this, and we've talked to them about it, they'd be willing to talk to us if we can get access for the other property that Global has to get to their property into this, whether they're considering maybe something could be done to make a connection.
It'd be great to have another access there.
Yeah,
Even if it means building a little bridge over the wetlands.
Yeah, I think our goal was to go from Apple Valley across and not have to do a wetland crossing. There is a small stream that comes down by the Home Depot that we have to cross as it is. But crossing this wetland, I think, would be major because it is quite a broad area.
In all your travels down there, what's the situation with the feral cats? There was a huge colony of feral cats down there.
I wasn't aware of that. I don't know if it was
That has not come up on my part of it either, so I don't know.
Especially in that house that is right there.
down the bottom.
Yeah.
Can we talk about what about the fines? It seems like there's a lot of them that should have been fined. Like, I'm
Say
looking
that-
just at the pictures, it looks like there's toxic shit.
What about what?
What kind of fines that you said they're willing to pay?
Well, those are instituted, agreed upon fines in municipal court. They range from $1,000 to $3,000 on probably 3 or 4 occasions. They related to the Bouchelet Construction Company, which is a use by special use permit operating down there at times. And it also related to the overall violations regarding zoning violations for the buildings being too close to the lines at the time. And it related to generally not having building permits yet for those buildings.
This has been in court then? How was this, has this been in front of a judge, jury?
Yeah, no judge, no jury. It's municipal court in front of a judge.
Municipal, that's what, yeah, same thing. So the decision was made to give I mean, it sounds like a low fines, as far as I'm concerned. But, I mean, they've just been like abusing this property, not caring about anything over there, doing what they want. And now all of a sudden, because they're gonna pay us $3,000, they can do what they want?
No, they're coming before you to get approvals, to get this all.
I like to go look at this. To me, it looks like Sanford and Son. You know what I mean? There's cars, bricks.
I'm not sure what pictures you have.
If you go to the back of Coastal One Bank, you can look down the embankment.
No, I like
right
to, so all of us will go look.
Yeah.
Cleaned up. Those are pictures just to give you a general idea. A lot of that has been fixed.
Well, I'd make a motion that we go and look at this.
That's all been, I don't see all those pictures, but some of that's been addressed. You can go look at the site.
Yeah.
It's
No,
fine,
I
you have
think-
that, it's within your purview, but a lot of that was cleaned up. As part of going through the court process, they got rid of some stuff.
Has DEM gone in there and looked at it? See if there's any.
Did they clean the tires up?
Toxic waste?
The tires were not this owner's, but he did clean them up.
Okay.
And DEM, I don't know what DEM went back to check it. DEM has to permit their stormwater management for this area.
Was salt stored there?
No, I don't believe salt has been there at any time.
Well, look, some kind of materials, the little salt bin kind of things.
A lot of that is like, some of that is sand for Bussolay had put down there.
I don't understand how, I think we should go look at this place.
Sure.
To me, it just looks like the property's gonna be used. You know what I'm saying? It looks to me like, I hope I'm wrong, that people have been doing changes of oil and just throwing it in the backyard.
Yeah, it's just operating as a business, so you can go look at it. I don't think it's,
Yeah.
I have, our zoning official goes down there almost once a month.
The first thing I wrote my little note was, well, now this place should be fine. I'm glad at least they got a couple of that. My first note was, why isn't this place been fined?
That was why, because several things were going on and,
It's like,
yeah.
You know, this is like, you know, I don't know, this looks like, you know, really backward kind of material to me. I'm sorry to say that way, but it looks like Sanford and Son, we got used cars, broken down pieces, oil trucks.
Oh, some of the, yeah, like I said, some of that would be going, you can go look at
It
it.
goes on and on and on, you know what I mean? It looks like a toxic waste dump, you know, to me, I don't know.
Well, it's not, yeah, it's not toxic waste. I can
I'd
tell
like
you
to
that.
see if there is toxic waste there.
Yeah, that's, you
You
can
know
go
what I'm
down,
saying?
and remember, as a board, you can put any conditions you want on any approvals. But
I would
what we're
like-
trying to do is get this place into compliance.
Well, yeah, well, before we give them any kind of variances or like leeway, I'd like to see it 100% cleaned up, and then we'll talk about what you can use it for.
Well,
You know what I mean?
part of the cleanup relates to a special use variance that they're gonna ask you for regarding the
I
construction.
don't think they should be asking us for anything. I think we should be telling them to clean it up.
I know, but what I'm saying is their special use permit that they're gonna ask you for. Has to do
Should be
with-
My opinion should be denied before, until we get it cleaned up and look at it. It looks like a mess.
Well, let's set
We
it.
don't know
we
if
can-
those pictures accurately
That's what I'm
show
saying.
what it looks like
But we'll
today.
set the date. The attorney's here to explain what he wants. I just wanted to give you a little opening so that you have an
I'm
idea.
just telling you, I'm glad they find at least something.
Sure.
But, I mean, you.
A balance,
wanna
you gotta
give them a
balance.
Variance, to me, it sounds like, well, if you give us what we want, we'll clean it up. What? You know what I'm saying? Let's get it cleaned up. Let's go look at it first, get it cleaned up, get a look at it, see if it's cleaned up, and then ask for a variance.
All right, remember,
I think.
those are your,
I'm not telling you.
I
we
know,
have the
those
right
are
to
your
do that.
options. That's why it's before you.
Thank you. I'm just
to
saying, I was
review.
laughing when I saw this at home. I really was.
And I'm gonna look at those, because I didn't look at those actual pictures, because I look at some of the pictures that were taken last month and stuff, so I'll look at those.
All right, thank you.
Council's here to
You know-
do the actual presentation.
You know what scares me even more, especially since I just found out it was $3,000 fine?
Yeah.
What, a couple times, 4 times?
It's about that. It's about like
So say-
7,000 or 8,000.
Say there's this guy, and he knows he won't be able to put these garages up with the setbacks he has. If he just goes ahead and puts it up, it'll be a $12,000 fine. He's better off going ahead and doing it without getting the proper permits.
Well, you're
I mean-
correct, but that happens all the time in different areas. But now they're going through a lot of expense to do engineering and come before you. So although you see it that way, they are spending money to go through this process.
No, it all seems silly. It really does. It just seems like a silly thing that I'm looking at.
Let's hear from the applicant's representative, and then you can ask some questions.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board. My name is Hagop Jaharjan. I'm here for the applicant Alba Properties. With regards to the special use variance and the dimensional variances that are being requested, There are 4 buildings there presently. There were 4 buildings there when my clients purchased this property. And the condition of the property when they bought it, previously it was used as greenhouses. That business from the sellers to my clients had been shut down, and the property was completely dilapidated. A lot of what you may have seen in those pictures were there prior to them buying it, first and foremost. Also, for the record, Mr. Avagian, who was present, had to leave because of a family emergency, so I want the record to reflect that he was here and he's been actively involved. He's communicated with all the various departments for the town of Smithfield. First and foremost, we're looking for a special use variance for the purposes of allowing the storage of construction equipment as well as materials on the premises. Under the zoning ordinances, special use for that type of relief is allowable with the approval of the board and any conditions that they may attach to any such approval. The dimensional variances that we're looking at are minor, and specifically, one of the dimensional variances we're looking for is the front property. So if you were to look at the map, it would be the building number 1 that's most eastward on the property closest to Levi Lane. That's a pre-existing structure that was there for many, many years, and it's our position that would be grandfathered in, but we are being transparent and requesting the relief nonetheless, just to make sure that everything is done correctly.
He said
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you
he
said.
believes it was grandfathered by when it was built.
I believe in Santa Claus too, but, what's is it grandfathered or not grandfathered?
It was an existing building.
What, once again, is it or isn't it?
Yes, it is, but he's asking for the, so what happens is, to be thorough, when you go for dimensional variances before zoning boards, you usually try to be thorough and get the variance for all your pre-existing buildings that were there long before you bought it, just so you have the whole property in compliance and it doesn't become a problem.
Well, title search, yeah, title search the property, right? Is that, what are we talking about?
Yes.
Right, that's what I'm saying, so who did that? The decision should be already made, right?
That building was probably put up long before, I have no idea the history behind that building being built.
But shouldn't the title have found a decision being made that it is grandfathered?
There are buildings all over town that are pre-existing, non-conforming like that don't meet standards. They're built in front yards, side yards, everywhere you go. This is just one example.
And a title search will not uncover if a building doesn't comply with zoning from a certain time. So that's why they asked for it as part of an overall zoning application and land development project.
Okay, I'm just looking, to me, it just sounds,
That does not, that happens all the time at zoning.
that's the first, I've been here for 3 years, the first time I heard that one.
Well, that's because you got, as a board, you usually don't hear the zoning aspect to these projects. You hear the planning side and just give a general recommendation to the zoning board to make approvals to zoning to allow the project to continue to go forward. And then when it gets to zoning, the zoning board would hear all the details of all the dimensional relief. And a lot of times the board would hear, this building's been here, but because we're doing an addition, what happens often is they're gonna do an addition, so they get the same relief for their existing house, for dimensional relief, because when they bought the house down in Esmond, it's 5 feet off the side of the road, but they're doing an addition, so they get the 5 feet variance for the existing house also. It happens all the time, those get grandfathered, so out of abundance of caution, you get the dimensional variance. So later in time, when a title search is done, and there's a zoning resolution on record, everyone knows all the buildings now have a variance.
Thank you.
I'd like to proceed with, as I said, the purpose of having the variance for building number 1, which is the most eastwardly property, is to be in full compliance and also to be transparent, as I indicated. The additional variances we're looking for is with regards to building number 4 and number 3 relative to the southwest corner. The dimensional request that we're looking for is,
It's 30 feet or something, right?
side variance of building number 3, we're looking for a variance from 31 point, it's, the variance, or the ordinance requires 40 feet side variance, we're at 31.3. So we're looking for about 9.7 feet. And building 4, it's 22.8 that we're looking for. To address something that was presented to the board previously, the issue with DEM was not something that was caused by my clients. The tires were in fact not even on their property. They were on the property for Global Signal, the abutting property owners. Notwithstanding that, my clients did take it upon themselves at their own expense to clean out whatever DEM required of them going into the river, in fact, which is on the abutting properties owners section of the parcels, cleaning all that out. I'm not sure what photos you've seen, but I openly invite everyone to go down there and take a look at what this condition of these properties is. From what this property was before my clients decided that they were going to put the buildings up, it was actually an eyesore, number one. It was a safety concern because they were getting constant calls from the Smithfield Police Department that there were kids going down there, all sorts of illicit, illegal activities. So they did decide that they wanted to do something to improve the property. I'm not excusing the format of how we're before you. It's literally reverse engineering it, but that's why I'm involved, where my clients decided that they could take it upon themselves and proceed with what they thought they could do under the law. It wasn't intended as characterized as, we'll go do what we want to do, and then we'll pay the minimum fines.
Your clients were subsequent purchasers.
Correct.
So these conditions existed.
Correct.
It's not like they created the condition.
Correct. Because my clients purchased this in 2016. If you went and looked at the property subsequent to their purchase, it was deplorable. It was deplorable. And with the continued calls and involvement with police to go down there and take steps to secure the premises as best as they could. But if anyone's familiar with the area, before there was any sort of development, this was just, the buildings were dilapidated. They were basically conducive to anyone that wanted to use it for illegal or illicit activities to do so. The solicitor also mentioned that we are in negotiations, or alluded to, we are in the process of negotiating with Global Signal, which is the owner of a couple of parcels back there, including the abutting property, to purchase the property. And there have been some discussions with representatives of the town to allow a pass-through road to connect either Apple Valley or somehow maybe behind the mall. But that is something that my clients are on board with, because it also makes it easier for them that with the traffic on 44, that if they can circumvent and go around and go to a traffic light and then come out and then take a left onto 44 to head to 295, it's easier for them.
Yeah, but that argument has been made for years. Joe Matteo had that property, back in there. That argument's been made, traffic going through, connecting the malls and all. What does that have to do with your client wanting to have that done? Is there an idea of developing in there, or
No, it's to make it easier
for who?
for the town also.
How?
How? It's easier for the fire apparatuses to get around and then back, sometimes depending. Easier to get to the back of the Smithfield Commons, depending on the exigent circumstances and the emergencies, depending on where they're coming from. It all has to be engineered, but we're on board, and my clients are on board to work on getting a connector.
So people are gonna invest money in it to make it easier for the town of Smithfield?
Why not?
Will it make it easier for their business?
No.
Get their trucks in and out?
It will, but it also addresses a concern and a benefit that the town will also get, because I think that that particular discussion about a road back there has been going back for at least
Oh, I know.
3 to 4 decades.
I know Joe Mattio, yeah, I know Joe personally.
And I'm not sure what the circumstances are that it was never done, but I can't speak to that. What I can speak
Well,
to is,
there was a lot of problems with the wetlands, the traffic, they didn't want people going back. The town, nobody wanted it for years, and I don't think, there was never a good reason to put it in.
Mr. Boyd, I can only tell you that my clients are on board to assist the town if there's a connector road that they want to put through there.
I just was wondering why, that's all.
The existing business is zoned, meaning A-Star Oil. The building number 1 is zoned properly to be as office use with accessory uses, which the business is. The only special use variance would be for the construction, storage, and the construction material storage.
Would there be a request for fueling?
Not there. If you're referring to fueling as far as their equipment, no, they go elsewhere to fuel. If there's a concern about the oil trucks, this has already been addressed. The oil trucks that are there, they leave the premises in the morning, they go down to the depot, they fill up, they go to the respective clientele customers, make their deliveries, come back empty at the end of the night. So they're not fueling there, they're not storing anything there.
There's no plans for doing that.
A, there are no plans. B, I don't think that it's even allowable under any
No,
aspect of zoning or planning that would allow that kind of use back there. But to answer your question, there is no plans for that. They're not going to store fuel there. All it is equipment, whether it's for the construction company or for A-Star, which is already allowed to use that under the zoning as an accessory to the office.
Did you want to still take a view?
Oh, I want to look at it.
May I also address the stormwater? One of the things that is pending right now, as the application reflected, is we've submitted stormwater remediation and control. We're working with DEM. Unfortunately, if anyone's familiar with working with DEM, you're not going to get anything done. It was strongly recommended that we get this application in sooner rather than later. So I don't want the board to think that we're trying to piecemeal this. We just need to get this thing moving forward, and depending on whatever decisions that the board might make, it certainly would be conditional on any DEM approval of the stormwater.
Yeah, I understand you want to move it forward, but I want to make sure we do it correctly. You know what I mean? Look at it, have it cleaned up, and look at it. Because this is not a small, to me, it doesn't look like this is an easy fix. I don't know. This looks bad to me.
Well, if you're looking at the photos, and the photos are what is controlling and dictating what you believe is going on over there, the photos are not accurate or reflective of what the property is like presently. And certainly, those photos aren't even close to the cleanup that my clients did upon purchasing the property.
Okay, so you wouldn't have any problems cleaning it up before we go any further then?
I have no problems. In fact, I invite you to go down there, take a look at it, and if it requires a continuance of this matter before any further discussions or actions are taken, I have no problems with that.
Do we take a vote on that, Mr. Ursullo?
Yes, for a site visit, make a motion for a site visit. I think it would be best to try to come to a date now. Passes.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion for a site visit.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. All not in favor? One not in favor, the ayes have it.
I think it's something you can look right down, you can see it.
Yeah, but I disagree. This board has to start going out and looking at these projects. You know, physically looking at it. We're looking at pictures and stuff. I disagree with you right on that. I think we should start going out and looking at all of these sites.
What I'm saying is you can, I've been down there, you can see it now, just looking over the edge and back of the bank. It's very visible.
Well, we voted on doing a site visit. Whoever would like to be present, they're welcome. If someone doesn't want to come, they don't come. When? When do you want to do it, Charlie? Some Saturday morning.
He wants it done back, you know.
29th to the 5th,
With it?
29th or the 5th.
Is that his-
20, let's do the 29th.
29th?
Everybody okay?
They have to be there
29th?
too, right?
March 29th?
I did not hear you.
They have to be there too, so it's up to them too, right? Yeah.
March 29th, 9 a.m.
9 a.m.?
The matter will be continued.
To the next meeting for April 7th?
If he wants the April one, we presently have two matters that could be very lengthy.
Why don't we put it on for that, or we can decide whether it needs to be continued?
Yep,
Okay.
that's fine.
And
Thank you for the forewarning.
Do you have the engineering drawings at this point that's submitted?
With regards to the abutting property, that drawings are being prepared contingent upon the acquisition. And that's, the closing's happening next week. So, we should have something before the 17th, assuming we go forward on the 17th.
Yes.
so we'll have a motion?
Motion to continue the matter until April 17th meeting, time permitting, and also to include a site visit of the property on March 29th at 9 a.m.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. All not in favor? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody have today's, can you take my docket? Or did I hide it?
Oh, I know, no, this is why it's got my stock over as well.
Okay, last matter, to consider and discuss act upon amendments to the zoning ordinance, Article 4.3, Table of Uses, and 4.4, Supplementary Use Regulations.
Good evening. We are here to, oops, a little, that's you? Okay, sorry. We're here to discuss some changes to the zoning ordinance. I think it was over a year ago now that we changed a bunch of uses from special use permits to prohibited uses because of changes in the legislation that basically stated that any use category that didn't have objective criteria would, after January 1st, 2024, be considered a by right use if they did not have objective criteria. Ashley Sweet is here from our consultant on this to, put together a bunch of criteria for these uses that we identified through, going through the ordinance and ferreting out all the ones that didn't have what could be considered objective criteria. So I'll have Ashley come up and she can go through them with you. The idea is to get a recommendation to the town council to, revisit these items and get them back in the use table as special use permits. So without further ado.
Hello. So it's been a while since I've been here, but we have amendments to your section 4.4 of your zoning ordinance, and at Mike's direction, in terms of which uses you needed these for, we've drafted you some special use permit specific and objective criteria for your consideration. I don't know how you want to go through these. We can just go one at a time. If you guys have changes you'd like to make, I can take note of those. We can update the draft and then give it back to Mike so that you can move it forward to the council whenever you're ready.
What is the pleasure of the board members? Do we want to go through each one? Or do we have anybody have questions after reviewing the material?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
No matter what we ask and what we listen to, it's not gonna matter, right?
Correct.
Let's go home.
Well, I mean,
I'm serious.
well, in all fairness, if we had a recommendation to a particular provision or change and all of that, that could have some weight before the town council.
Well, I mean, at the moment, I think your previous uses that were special use permits were changed to a no, because with the changes to the state law, they said that anything that doesn't have specific and objective criteria that is listed as a special use permit is considered permitted if you don't have them. So at Mike's direction, we looked at, he gave us the list of which ones you guys had taken out and turned to no's that didn't have specific and objective criteria, and that's what you have in front of you. So if you don't do anything with it, it doesn't get to the council, and then it
I don't
doesn't
think
change.
that I think his
No,
point
just
was.
say, okay, I mean, because if I tell you no, I don't like it,
Well,
you can tell me yes, so change, it's not gonna
Well,
matter anyway.
You're supposed to give you're either supposed to give an advisory opinion on consistency with the comprehensive plan for any zoning ordinance amendment, or if you are the ones that send it to the council, you send it to them as a document that's consistent with the comprehensive plan, and then it's up to them as to what they adopt.
How about this? I assume we all have reviewed this material prior to coming here today. Instead of going through each one by one, given that we have all reviewed the material ahead of time, if any board member has any particular questions, recommendations, other than the global recommendations here, why don't we ask,
So there are a couple of blank spaces in there where it just didn't feel appropriate for us to make a determination about certain things. So you'll notice like in A9G, there's a suggestion in there that you could put a size limit if you wanted to do that, but we left the space there for you to make the determination as to what felt appropriate.
this is for a greenhouse.
Yeah, if you don't want to limit the size, we can wipe that out. So there are some places in here where I think you'll want to weigh in.
Let's begin with that. The recommendation of the planner. What dimensions would you recommend there?
Yeah, I don't know that we need to put a limit on greenhouses.
I'll just draw your attention to Exeter,
Exeter, well, yeah.
who got a massive green, like, it was over an acre in size. Just to, what's that?
It was up.
Yeah. They tried to put it up without any permits.
Well, what does the zoning say for height and width around in that area?
There was no limit. There was no size limit on a greenhouse, but also this
Just the
is,
structure itself.
there was no size limit, but this was, they tried to use the Right to Farm Act to say that they didn't have to do anything with the town, which they did, they were not successful with that. But I just, not to say that you have to, but there's almost always a story out there about why somebody did something.
What are other towns, what have they done with size, square footage?
50 by 100. 50 by 100 is 5,000 square.
Sounds good.
50 by 100.
Okay. I'm gonna put 5,000 square feet in case it's not 50 by 100, but it equates to the same thing.
Thank you, Victor.
Mr. Chair, I just make one point, member Boyd's comment. Right now, some of these items you're looking at are considered no's under our zoning. So if you don't wanna do anything, let's do nothing, your recommendation can also be, don't adopt any of this, keep everything a no, and let people come before the zoning board and figure out how they can get that particular use. So, but
Or
you
come
just said-
before you.
There you go.
Project, which everything is these days.
I'd like to have something to say once in a while around
Well,
here.
that's the way, so if you're actually, by you adopting this or not adopting, just keep that in mind, then, right now, these are no's.
That's an thank you for that. I vote for that.
So I will say that some communities have decided not to go back to special use permits because they're not the tool that they used to be anymore. And they've decided instead of keeping special use permits and struggling with specific and objective criteria, they've decided to make things permitted uses with, pretty substantial lists of performance standards. I think we discussed, though, that you consider these to be waivable and alterable. Some solicitors have said if it's a specific and objective criteria, you can't waive it. So they've just walked away from special use permits and just said, we'll do permitted uses, we'll put a long list of performance standards in, and if they need to waive a performance standard, if we need to modify a performance standard, we can do that.
I still think it's better they come before the board, like he said, do it that way, say no, rather than.
But I took a slightly different analysis.
Right.
Because I took the analysis, you had a permitted use and it had performance standards, then it's an X or Y. You either meet the performance standards and you get the permitted use, or you don't get the permitted use. I felt that there was no in between. I felt by having the special use permit with objective criteria, if that's the way the town ended up going, that gives you, in my opinion, before a board, either yours as part of a land development project or just before the zoning board, where now you can say, I have a special use permit, I have to meet all these objective criteria, but I don't meet all of them exactly, but maybe the board, whichever one, can give.
They pick and choose on it,
And I gave this example to everybody I asked. The basic one is a small drive-through place. And if you have a performance standard that says you need 8 cars in the queue, and you don't meet it, sorry, you're not a permitted use in our town. But if it's 8 cars in the queue and you have enough for 4, and you can do it as a special use permit, and get before a board and explain why 4 makes sense, well, then you might be able to still get it.
That's fair.
Right? Exactly.
It's
makes
fair for
sense.
both sides.
Because there's at least probably one bank in town I can think of that doesn't meet our queue, but you probably don't even know where it is.
Excellent.
They came before the zoning board, and they got a variance on their special use permit over the queue, and you don't even know about it. And I took the tack that if it's permitted with performance standards, it's an X or Y, and you don't want that, because now you can end up with some company in a business that you don't like, but they say they need it, and they're going where they want, because it's now permitted, as opposed to having that be. And that's where I come from. So if you do adopt it, that's why you would be adopting it from the special use side, to make them come before boards if they don't meet this objective criteria exactly. Or keep it a no, make them come before a board for a use variance.
Thank you for putting that time in on that and giving us that idea, because I think that's a wonderful idea.
We have this guidance. Instead of coming to the no, it was complete guidance to bring the
How about the penal facility or prison?
I said other than, I think that says other than penal. Municipal other than penal?
No, it says, just says penal facility. The 11,
So that's
page 3.
existing language.
Huh?
That's existing language.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is that a no?
Yeah, I don't think that's allowed anywhere.
Okay.
I was reading 9, municipal except penal.
J11, yeah.
So that's not a permitted use, correct?
Mike is checking.
No, I think when
I
we
mean,
did it,
the reality that we're living in is we don't know how it's gonna get interpreted in the court system. So we don't know if you can waive a specific or objective criteria. We don't know if you can waive a performance. We won't know till somebody challenges it and they go to court and the judge decides how that works. So,
Yeah, D11 is prohibited everywhere,
so should we take that out?
yeah, that should be out.
yeah,
Page 3, D11.
prisons.
It should be out.
Out.
Yep.
It's already not permitted anywhere.
And do you want to call out the other ones that you mentioned?
So, let's see, just make sure I catch any other blank spots.
That's,
I didn't see another one. I just saw a change on page 3.
Page, excuse me,
Go ahead.
page 7, J4A asks a question, do we want a size limit? What general industrial?
I think that the wall structures, may not, maybe no greater than, because, we want a size limit, square feet.
How about our size expert?
Big number.
J4, it's on the bottom of page 7.
Yeah, big.
That's, you need a big space. I would think
10?
It's for manufacturing, so you just need a garage door on one side and another side.
But if they wanted larger, they have to come in.
They could come and ask you for a dimensional relief.
Fun. All right, then let's go with the recommendation.
Start out small.
10,000.
Is that's do you want that to be the footprint or the total square footage of the facility? Total square footage?
J4?
Yeah.
J4A.
That's small, but that's at least they come.
If you did footprint, then they could have multiple stories, but not over your height limit unless they got a variance.
Yeah, that would be practical anyway.
39?
Yeah, I would go a little bigger than that.
What do you recommend, 15?
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of the industrial parks we have a lot of, 12,000 square foot buildings and a lot of small industrial parks that we have.
And this does say the aggregate footprint of all structures. You don't have to approach it that way. If you had multiple 10,000 square foot structures, if your concern is just the size of one building, not necessarily how much you have for building, you could just do, no single building could be more than 10,000.
Why don't we do
And you
that?
don't cap an aggregate of,
No single building. Yeah.
So you can put a compound.
Is there a condition on this one for like, negatively hazardous substance or hazardous materials? Have you seen any adding something to that effect to control what type of manufacturing?
I think it's covered in,
I mean, it depends, it varies community to community because some of them have all that stuff on their prohibited list anyway and they don't deal. Right.
Maybe we should add an item, though, not including anything on the prohibited.
I mean, I would think that would be automatic because it's prohibited. You can't have them.
I mean, under, like under industrial, light industrial, provide that such uses shall not include the sale or transfer of flammable liquid, gas, explosive, burn, or potentially hazardous materials. We could add that to the general industrial category as well. That would cover, I think.
What are we adding?
Correct me if I'm wrong, we're making a recommendation to the
Town council, yes.
This is gonna go to the town council. The town council can turn around and say, we don't want to do this.
You're correct. Or they could change the language.
Or they can change the land.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying, we'll go there.
Yes. Is there any other spots?
I didn't see any.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend approval of the amended supplemental use regulations for section 4.4.
Was the additions made today? With the amendments today? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Yay.
Two final matters.
Thank you.
Well, we gotta open it up. We gotta open it up for public hearing, public comment. No, we have a member coming for public comment.
Michael Ionati, Smithfield Town Council. I just wanted to,
I don't know, no, we don't have to call the border.
I just wanted to point out that these meetings are live streamed. As we can see, Sharon doing a great job over there. And I've been told, as recently as tonight, by text, that when the solicitor or the town planner are speaking at the table, they cannot be heard. So, especially when an applicant is up here and they're commenting on the application, and I think it's very important for the people at home watching, that some of them can't make it. They're either watching live or they're watching it later on to be able to hear all of the comments. So I would suggest that we put a microphone here so that they don't have to keep popping up back and forth here. And that way, I think that would solve that problem.
That makes sense.
Also, I've made a request to the town manager, just so you know, that I think we used to have the whole packet scanned in and available to the public online, that you're looking at. And I'd like to see that come back so that, when people come for a big project or a little project or whatever, if people are interested in it, they can see some of the document, maybe not all would fit in being scanned in, see some of the documentation that goes along with it so that they're able to follow along a little better as to, what is going on.
Would that include the minutes from the last meeting too? Would you want to have to?
Well, I mean.
I'm just asking because.
Yeah,
you can see the whole
I go
package.
by, what is available to the public at our town council meetings, and they pretty much have, they pretty much have everything that we have, except things that relate to individuals, like resumes and things like that. So I'd like to see as much as possible
I don't see a
available.
problem, but I was just wondering if you wanted to.
Yeah, yeah, right on the webpage where the announcement is made, just like the town council is done, same exact way. And I think that would provide more meaningful public
The only thing I can
participation.
see with the meeting date would be, we'd have to review it first, like we do before they got it.
I don't think we do as the planning board.
No,
The planner would, yeah.
the minutes, you're not going to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
Yes.
Until they're posted, I don't think I don't believe they're public until they have to be posted. And usually posting doesn't come for 35 days
The
after.
minutes eventually get posted somewhere, I assume. So I think, I think the councilman's talking more about the material that, the applicant's material that we're all looking at. That, am I correct?
Yeah, I think that's what the public would be most interested in, to be able to look at, especially if they're, they're
Engineering
participating at
reports.
home. Right, exactly. So
Okay.
I think.
That's a good idea.
I think we want to have meaningful participation by the public.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine brought up a good point earlier, that if we're going to have the project that was before us today in Lime Rock on the same day, we might not be able to handle them in this particular location. So if they're, so if they're both on, we're-
Today is the deadline for application for the April meeting, and we have a sign submitted.
Lime Rock did not? Okay, well, if that's, if it appears both are on, perhaps we could, does that affect the public notice, given, we've given public notice to be here?
Well, yeah, but when they were here tonight, the public notice is continued to this location. We didn't say maybe.
We didn't say this location, we said that, yes.
They need notice of the actual location.
Well, let's take it one step at a time. Let's see if Lime Rock is on, then we may have that concern. If they're not on, then we're not going to have the concern. Okay? Making a motion?
There was a concern about
I'm jumping the gun like you did a moment ago.
a date of the next meeting.
Oh,
As it relates to,
yes.
and I'm only saying that because it was brought up by an individual, a resident of the town, who's aware of the fact that that's a whole
My pleasure is what your pleasure is. I'm happy to go forward with that date. I'm happy to change the date if that's what the board, members of the board, or input from the town planner on whether that can even be done.
I think it'd be silly if we don't give it to them.
You know, the agreement with farms will continue to that date as a profit, or we can make a decision as well.
You have to at least appear that night. Lime Rock is, it all depends on Lime Rock. So why don't we gotta keep the 17th for now because of the.
Okay. All right.
I won't be attending, so I'm sure there'll be an.
Okay.
Anyone else know that you won't be attending? I might not be.
I'll be here.
We'll see.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.